Throughout the last couple of years, video game movies have been having a redemption arc of sorts. You have the Sonic movies, the Mario movie, and the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. And even though these movies aren't popular with critics, they've become a lot more successful with casual audiences and fans of these games. And even though they're not movies, I have to bring up both The Last of Us show and the Fallout show. The Last of Us in particular has received a lot of critical acclaim, with people calling it one of, if not the best video game adaptation. At the very least, it's up there in the top 5. Now, despite the redemption arc that video game adaptations have been going through lately, the video game movie curse still lives on to a lesser extent. You have the Halo TV show, which was recently cancelled after 2 seasons, and apparently it's pretty bad. I'm not all that familiar with Halo, and I've never seen the show, but I've heard a lot of stuff about how this show is pretty bad. It doesn't respect its source material, which is a very common thing for these movies and TV shows. More recently, you have the Borderlands movie, which is complete garbage. One of the worst movies of the year, easily. Again, I know nothing about the Borderlands series. I only watched this movie because I saw it debut with a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's like, that's how I knew I was in for a disaster. And indeed, I received a disaster. Stay tuned for the video on this movie, by the way. It's going to be so worth it. And finally, perhaps the most bizarre one of them all, Disney, yes, Disney of all studios, is for whatever reason making a movie based on the infamous PS2 game Snow White and the Seven Clever Boys. What compelled them to make a movie based on such a game? We will likely never know. The first trailer for this adaptation came out recently, and so I figured I'd make a video talking about Disney's very questionable, bizarre decision to make a movie based on this game. As most of us know, Hollywood has had a bad reputation over the last couple of years. A lot of people have talked about the quality of big budget Hollywood blockbusters when compared to the quality of smaller indie movies, believing that the smaller indie movies are of much better quality. The large wave of modern film criticism has affected Disney in particular, and unfortunately for Disney, I don't think making a movie based on a game infamous for having one of the worst cover arts of all time is going to help out their reputation at all. All jokes aside though, very recently Disney released the first trailer for their controversial Snow White remake, expected to come out in 2025. And so here I am making a video on it because I feel like I'm legally obligated to make a video on it. If Disney knew what was good for them, they would cancel this thing and save themselves from a ton of backlash, but it seems Disney hates themselves just as much as we hate them. Now, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that, like, if you're anti-woke or anything like that, if you expect me to complain about how this movie is gonna be bad because it's gonna be woke or whatever, then you've come to the wrong place, I'm afraid. I understand that I will attract an audience of anti-woke weirdos just by making this video simply because of its subject matter, and even if I explicitly state a million times that no, this video is not me criticizing the fact that the movie is woke or anything like that. I have actual, like, valid criticisms with the movie that's not just, oh, it's woke or whatever. That's not going to stop people from watching this and being like, yeah, this is woke liberal garbage. Disney's become woke. Snow woke in the 7 pronouns or some shit like that. Bro, I'm so, like, I might make a separate video on this, but I hate modern film criticism. It's like you're not able to, like, criticize a movie anymore. You're no longer able to, like, express how you feel about a movie, positively or negatively, without these people complaining about wokeness or whatever. I should have the freedom to praise any movie that I find good and criticize any movie that I find bad, but unfortunately I'm not able to do that in this day and age. If this thing came out in the 2000s, I would be free to criticize it as much as I want without having to worry about people calling it woke or whatever. People that make those that criticize this movie for valid reasons look bad, but unfortunately in 2024, modern day film criticism has become this fucked up thing. Like, I don't even know what to describe it as. Now that we got the elephant in the room out of the way, let's actually talk about the trailer. It looks like hot garbage, as per usual with these live-action Disney remakes. Actually, I struggle to even call this live-action because I'm pretty sure like 99% of this movie is straight-up CGI. You look at this opening shot and it's like everything in this shot is CGI except for Rachel Zegler, the actress that's gonna play Snow White. There was a similar criticism for the 2019 remake of The Lion King, where it's like 98% of the movie is CGI, like very photorealistic looking CGI, but still CGI nonetheless. And that's why some people say that like, oh, The Lion King remake is technically the highest grossing animated movie of all time. I still refer to it as a live action remake anyways, simply because photorealistic CGI remake doesn't roll off the tongue as easily, but at least it like vaguely kind of makes sense for The Lion King, because like the main characters are all CGI animals. There's not a single human in the movie. Whereas with this movie, there are human characters. You have Snow White and you have the evil queen. The titular 7 dwarves are all CGI. I believe there was like a controversy about this whole thing. I'm not 100% sure, because of course this movie doesn't have enough controversy already. In an interview, Peter Dinklage, an actor who has a form of dwarvism, criticized the original movie for apparently portraying dwarves in a negative way. I'm not 100% sure. And so he thought that if they got like actual people with dwarvism to play the dwarves in this live action remake, it would be like disrespectful and offensive to those that have dwarvism. And so I guess to avoid backlash, Disney decided to have the dwarves be CGI in this movie, and all that did was cause even more backlash for them, showing that they cannot win no matter what. Apparently it's really hard for actors with dwarvism to get roles in movies, and the fact that this movie uses CGI for the 7 dwarves might make things harder for them, so yeah, that sucks. The fact that like a good 90% of the movie is just gonna be CGI, it makes you question what's the point of even doing it in the first place. This just makes me look back on the older live action Disney remakes that we got, and it makes me question how many of these movies are actually live action for the most part. Maybe a lot of these movies are the same thing, where it's like most of them are just shot in front of a green screen, in front of a CGI background. Maybe it's been like this from the very beginning, but it just didn't feel as blatant as it does now with Snow White. I don't know. When you make it so that it's just 99% CGI, it's like, what the hell is the point? Let's remake an animated movie and make it animated again. Like, it's so stupid. What's the point? I think I've said this before as well, but I find this to be a particularly disrespectful remake in a way, just because of the whole thing that like Snow White was the first ever animated movie, and it's like, obviously I'm not against live action versions of Snow White being made, not from Disney at least. Like, other interpretations could be made, they've already been made before, and that's fine, even if they're in live action, I don't care. But there's something about like Disney over here doing it that's just really off to me. They're basically defeating the whole purpose of the original Snow White, like part of what made Snow White so unique and special. Except they're technically not doing that because the movie is again mostly animated. The movie also just generally looks very boring and bland visually, which again, that's the case with a lot of these live action remakes. I've gone on before saying this and I'm gonna say it again, it's boring talking about these live action remakes and what makes them bad, because it's like they're just bad for the same reasons. Whatever problems this movie will have, you could probably say the same thing for Little Mermaid 2023 and Aladdin 2019 and Beauty and the Beast 2017 and so on. I don't know a single person that likes these movies, and yet somehow they keep getting made. They keep being successful at the box office. A lot of people joke about how like, oh, Avatar is the highest grossing movie of all time, but it's left behind no cultural impact, and it's like, it's the same thing with these movies. Like, who the likes Lion King 2019? There's not a single person in the world that likes Lion King 2019, and yet somehow it's the highest grossing animated movie of all time, and one of the highest grossing movies in general. I have to wonder, why do they keep making these movies? It just seems like a colossal waste of time for everyone involved. I've gone on before about like originality in movies nowadays and why we need more of it, and like these movies are a big problem with that. Nobody wants these movies anymore, and yet they keep getting made. I don't know a single person that likes these movies, and yet they keep making loads of money at the box office. Who are these movies for? I have to wonder. It cannot be for people that grew up with the original movies, because if that was the case, then they would just watch the original movies. Why would they watch an inferior, soulless version of it? It cannot be for people that have never seen the original versions and want to experience it, because again, they could just simply watch the original versions. Who are these movies made for? Why do they keep getting made? I'm gonna go as far as to say that like I don't even think Disney adults watch these damn movies. Disney adults are the only people on the entire planet that would watch and support these live action remakes, and yet I don't even think they like them. This is like the one aspect of Disney that they don't blindly worship. They obsess over Star Wars, the MCU, Pixar, the animated Disney movies, but these remakes, they don't touch them at all. Whenever you see a Disney adult worship The Little Mermaid or The Lion King or whatever, it's always the original animated movies. It's never the remakes. Who the hell are these movies made for? Why do they keep getting made? Is this like a money laundering scheme or something? Like, what's going on? I don't even think it's milking nostalgia at this point. It's just they exist just for the sake of existing. These movies get made just because. This movie is either going to flop at the box office or it's going to make $1 billion. There is no in between. I have seen nothing but negativity for this movie. I've just seen nothing but people saying that this movie is going to be garbage, it's going to be terrible, you know. There's the anti-woke weirdos, of course, but then you have people that think this movie will be bad for legitimate reasons. This is just Disney further desecrating their legacy. This is more proof that Hollywood refuses to do anything new, and so we just end up getting new versions of old movies that don't need remakes or sequels or reboots or anything like that, and yet they keep getting all of those. I have not seen a single person defend this movie saying like, oh no, it's gonna be good, you know, the people that say it's bad are wrong, the haters are wrong. I've seen no one defend this movie. I've seen no one express any sort of excitement for this movie. I've seen no one say, oh, I can't wait to watch this movie, it's gonna be great. I've seen nothing like that. It's just a whole lot of negativity surrounding this movie. The trailer has more dislikes than likes, for God's sake. So if this movie makes a lot of money at the box office, that's going to be extremely suspicious, I'm not even gonna lie. Unless by some goddamn miracle this movie actually ends up being good, but I mean, let's face it, we all know that's not gonna happen. And you wanna know the sad thing is, even if these movies aren't good at all, even if they leave behind no cultural impact, no one likes these movies could do terrible at the box office. They could get absolutely abysmal scores on like Rotten Tomatoes or whatever. They could be critically panned all around. None of that matters. They're still gonna get made. I'm still in disbelief that we are getting a live-action Lion King prequel focusing on Mufasa later this year. Like, how did we even get to this point? How did this even happen? Only in 2024 would we ever get a movie like this. In no other period of time, nowhere else in film history would we ever get something like this. Only in 2024. Only in 2024. Oh yeah, a new trailer was released for this Mufasa prequel, and the movie still looks bad. It still has no reason to exist at all. The only thing to take away from this new trailer is that Scar appears in it, and it's like, oh, Scar used to be a good guy, but then he became a bad guy, and this movie's gonna show how he became a bad guy, because that's clearly something that everyone wants to know, you know? Whenever people watch the original Lion King, they're always just wondering, how did Scar become a bad guy? What caused Scar to become a villain. That's definitely something that's on all of our minds. That totally makes the movie feel like it has a reason to exist. That totally gives it a purpose. That means the movie is not a pointless nostalgia bait cash grab or anything like that. No, 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 no. If there was one movie that I would point to as representing everything wrong with the current state of cinema, it would be this movie. Forget about Madam Web, forget about Borderlands, forget about all that other crap. Yeah, those might be worse movies in terms of quality, but I think this movie is going to be worse just because of what it represents, what it stands for. Madam Web is a bad superhero movie. Borderlands is a bad video game adaptation. Mufasa is just straight up nostalgia bait, and that's it. It only exists because of the nostalgia people have for the 1994 Lion King. It is creative bankruptcy in its purest form. This is the reason why people are turning away from the big Hollywood blockbusters in favor of smaller indie movies. This is why Disney and Warner Bros. Are dying while A24 and Neon are skyrocketing in popularity. I don't care if you think I sound pretentious for saying that, it's the truth. And once again, I've seen no one express any form of excitement for this movie, and yet I know for a fact it will make $1 billion. Well, okay, being a little bit more accurate, there's a 50-50 chance. This is either going to make $1 billion or it's going to be a box office flop. Again, there are no in-betweens. I know this video is primarily meant to be about Snow White, but I had to bring up this Mufasa movie because I still cannot get over the fact that such a movie is going to exist. The idea that, like, we've gotten to that point now where this is a real movie that's getting made. A movie that no one is excited for, and yet it could potentially make $1 billion at the box office. It's just, I don't get it. I really don't get it. I'm kind of impressed with myself, the fact that I was able to make a video talking about why this movie is not going to work, and I don't once bring up the whole thing that, like, Rachel Zegler doesn't like the original movie or anything like that. Because really, I don't care at all. She doesn't like the original Snow White, so what? I went from being mad that Rachel Zegler doesn't like the original Snow White to not caring about it at all to actually kind of relating to her in a way. I too know what it's like to receive tons and tons of backlash simply because I don't like a movie, even if I provide detailed, valid reasons as to why I don't like said movie. I can relate, definitely. I've never even seen the original Snow White, and besides that little piece of trivia that, like, oh, it was the first ever animated movie, I don't really have much interest in it, so it's like I care even less about whatever Rachel Zegler said about the movie. I can't believe I have to say this. This is really something that should go without saying, but please do not go and harass Rachel Zegler or anything like that just because she doesn't like the movie. I shouldn't have to say that at all. Some people should just already know that by default, but some people can be really stupid. They will take this extremely old movie seriously. I don't care if you're part of the anti-woke crowd, the animation is cinema crowd, or just the crowd that thinks the movie looks bad just because. I don't care. Do not harass Rachel Zegler or anything like that just because of whatever the she said about the original movie. Whatever it is she said about the original movie, it's probably going to be the least of this remake's problems, honestly. It's not her fault that the movie's going to be garbage. I don't know what I hate more, the fact that this movie is still coming out, or the fact that my YouTube recommendations will be filled with people complaining about how this movie is going to be woke. And so it's going to be, like, extremely hard to criticize this legitimately bad movie, because then people will assume that you're one of those anti-woke people just because you don't like the movie. And that's what I mean when I say modern film criticism is dead. Anyways, yeah, Snow White looks trash. Don't watch this movie. Disney. Originality in Hollywood is dead. Support indie movies. We'll support them if they're good. Contrary to popular belief, sometimes indie movies can be bad, and sometimes big Hollywood blockbusters can be good. I know it's hard to believe that, but it's true. The big Hollywood blockbusters from Disney, though, sure as hell ain't good, I'll tell you that much. Anyways, that's about it. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to like, and if you're new to the channel, maybe consider subscribing, as it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you everyone for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. Adios.